Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille show. It's Jerry Miller. It's great to be with you on a Tuesday. A lot I want to cover on this program with a good friend of the show. Her name is Valorie Easter. She's an entrepreneur. She has it in her blood, raised in a family of entrepreneurs, knows Charlottesville inside and out, and I think she's really done a fantastic job of building a personal brand and a professional brand that's one of tremendous goodwill, of good service, of knowing the market, and of staying ahead of the market. Valorie Easter is going to join us shortly on the I Love CVille show. First, let's thank the fine folks at Greenberry's Coffee. I don't know if you guys have known this, but for close to 27 years, Greenberry's Coffee has been Charlottesville's longest-running coffee providers. They now have 30-plus locations, including Japan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the West Coast, Washington, D.C. It was started by a husband and wife combo in Charlottesville, and now it's a global brand. I love stories like that here at I Love CVille. On that note, let's go to the two-shot and welcome Valorie Easter to the show. Valorie, thank you for joining us.
Well, happy to be here.
When I saw you on social, I follow you so closely. I love your brand. I love how you're doing Facebook Lives. I love how you're getting into coaching and using your God-given abilities to help educate other people on how they can better themselves as entrepreneurs. I knew if we welcomed you on the show, you would crush it, like yes. I know you would. Let's start open-ended. Put the Valorie Easter brand, the Valorie Easter career into perspective for us.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you've been watching me on social media, you've seen the ups and downs and the good, bad, and the ugly. So, I got into real estate back in 2005. I guess technically UVA grad, played lacrosse for a little bit at Virginia. Big sports athlete. I'm just very driven. And I started off in the mortgage industry. I was an econ major, wanted to look at the markets, figured out, what could I do that kind of worked in econ, and got into the mortgage industry. Bought my first house my first year out of college, dual agency, didn't know anything about it. So for those of you that don't know what dual agency is, it's when you call the agent on the sign and that agent represents you as the purchaser. Worst mistake ever. I ended up paying full price for a house that needed a $16,000 roof and 2 HVAC systems.
Was this your Florida home?
My Florida house.
And it took me, I follow you. I follow you closely. I've heard the trials and tribulations of this story, of this house.
Oh my gosh, it has been...
The white elephant.
It got half eaten by termites. The tenants tore it up. We had to put, $10,000-$15,000 into it to sell it. Once we finally sold it at a loss, it lost 75% equity. It's just been kind of that nightmare property. So when that happened, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get my real estate license and help as many people as possible not go through this.
So there was a positive from this white elephant.
Mm-hmm. There was. And since then, I've sold, well over 1,000 homes to people between Florida, Charlottesville, Richmond, kind of all over the place.
So a bad real estate experience with a bad real estate agent launches your real estate career because you're like, I am so much better than this and can offer so much more value proposition here.
Yep.
Put that, so when you launched the career, this is like, 2007?
2005.
2005. Okay, so you were going into a time when market's still okay, it's doing well, you probably sold some homes early, and then...
It tanked earlier.
I did?
In Florida.
So what, 6, 7?
And so it had tanked. By the time we were moving back to Virginia, we had already lost the 75% equity. So we couldn't even get what we wanted for it.
When you got into this career and you're like, good God, I'm doing this at probably I launched my business in 2008, and I was like, do I even do this? I had loved ones talking me out of it. They're like, this is not the time to do it. But as entrepreneurs, you and I, we're built the same way. And I feel like once we get something in our head, it's like, I don't care what you say. I'm just going to do it.
Well, think about it. People are still, having babies. They're still getting jobs. They're still losing jobs. They're still dying. There's constantly, people are real estate's having to move the inventory. So it's just... okay, you have to shift. And so start looking at the markets and saying, okay, the 6, 7, 800 million plus houses aren't selling, but what's selling? The 1, 2, and 3. Yes, I'm going to have to sell a lot more of those, but that's what's selling. So you have to kind of shift your market and find what's going on. Otherwise, you starve.
And I think you've done a really good job of, with your brand, positioning it in a way where it can help first-time home buyers and people new to the market, while also servicing the folks that are 2 or 3 trades deep in their lifetime. I think you're really offering, service to every demo. When you moved from Florida to Charlottesville, you had the family name. The Easter name speaks for itself in the community.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure, okay? A lot of pressure. But I think in some ways, wouldn't you rather launch a career having somewhat of a platform than having to start from scratch?
Well, it was from scratch.
Yeah.
Because here's kind of what happened.
Okay.
So I moved back, and we lived in a tiny 1-bedroom cottage out on my parents had a farm out in Free Union.
Okay.
And because I couldn't get a loan up in Virginia because you have to sell real estate up here for 2 years.
Okay.
My husband at the time was not employed. And so we just came up on sheer, faith.
Right. You had family in the area.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're up here for a month or 2 months, and I find out I'm pregnant. So I'm like, oh, this is awesome. We have no insurance. My husband has no job. I'm starting a brand new, over from scratch. That they had built that whole section up 29 North that wasn't there when I left, and the whole real estate landscape had changed from when I went down to Florida to when I came back. So it was different. So I didn't know what to expect when I had my first child. So I was like, I'm not going to start selling real estate. I'm going to start doing, at that time, a lot of properties were going to foreclosure and their short sales. And there are these companies doing what was called a broker price opinion. And so I drove almost to Hot Springs to do a broker price opinion for $45. But what it taught me, and they have no MLS out there, so I'm having to call appraisers to get property valuations for, to give the broker price opinion to this bank. So I'm literally getting probably $1,100 a month doing these broker price opinions, but I'm driving more than that.
Sure.
But what it did teach me was the values in the area. So I learned about, what property values were, what's selling, what price point things are at. And it really helped me to get a really good grasp of what was happening in the different areas.
I love that answer.
So,
I love that hustle, the sweat equity and the hardship you put in at first to build your career. Another point, and she's on the broadcast now, April Ward, and I mentioned this off air, and April, I know you're watching now. Thank you for the support, April, of this show. She mentioned while she was living in Fifeville, as you were starting your career, she would get voicemails from you cold calling the folks on King and down Cherry and Fifeville on the very streets saying, are you interested in selling your home? And April said on air on this show, she goes, as soon as I started seeing her persistence and got her voicemails, I'm like, this girl's a grinder, man. She hustles.
Yep.
I mean, how is that early in the stage you're doing that?
It's early. And, and I tell real estate agents, I said, success is simple, but it's not easy. And, by the simple part is you have to make the phone calls. And everybody hates cold calling.
Right.
They hate it. But, when you have an expired listing or for sale by owner, those people are raising their hands because their agent either let them down or they're unrealistic with their pricing. Or, they think that they can do something on their own, where I've seen for sale by owners underprice their house. I had one that I found that underpriced their house by $100,000.
And you're like, okay, yes, you kept the commission, but you lost the $100K. So you really are losing.
Yeah. Well, I actually ended up listing that one and sold it for full price in 2 days. And I think with all the net commissions and everything, she ended up making an additional $78,000.
I love it.
Besides what she had posted on Craigslist.
Right.
But, you have to make, what I say is 20 phone call voice to voice a day. So 20 voice to voice a day. And the whole thing with cold calling and what I do with my conversations, my conversion rate is ridiculous. It's 9 out of 10 to an appointment or meeting or something, because I just have a conversation. So I had people answer. 9
out of 10 of your cold calls lead to an in-person conversation?
Yeah.
Really?
It's
that's amazing.
My conversion rate. And it's so funny because when I had my team and I was showing them how to cold call, they would be like, did you know that person? I was like, no, I've never talked to them before in my life. But if you start asking questions instead of just telling people, then, you start understanding what they really need. And that's the biggest thing.
When you were cold calling folks, were they receptive or were they like stop call? I mean, what's the dynamic?
I mean, sometimes I remember I had one guy that was so just cantankerous on the phone.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, you sound like you woke up on the same side of the bed as my daughter this morning. And then he started laughing.
Because you broke the ice.
Yeah, you break the ice.
Yeah, you make it human. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's, it's like, I don't want to sell you, I want to help you. And so, if I'm not the person to help you sell your house, how can I help you in addition to that? So is there something else that I can do to share or give you some pointers or look at your, Zillow ad and, give you some tips on either content or, photos? So, what can I do? And so when people start understanding that you're truly coming from contribution and it's not about me or what you can do for me, it's more how can I help you, then the whole conversation shifts.
Yeah, I feel like I hope I share the same approach. She is of the mindset of the entrepreneur that if you give more than you take, you're going to win in the end. And that's pretty much, and you're right, you certainly do. And let's thank some people for joining on the broadcast. I have a lot I want to cover with you. April, thank you. Ginger Germani, thank you for joining us. David Cathcart, just a few. Lauren Linsky, Amonte Harvey, Baker Taylor Sandridge, Mark Waldman, Sarah Hill B. from Roy Wheeler on the cast, Jay Pun, your boy, Patsy Strong, Josephine, a lot of people on the cast right now. How do you go from cold calling? How do you go from hustling, like you were saying, that $1,100 driving to Hot Springs to then like taking the next step?
The next step.
Yeah.
So I kind of hit a plateau. I was selling about $5 to $6 million a year.
As a one-person team?
As a one-person team.
Okay, so you're making a nice living though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great living.
Yeah.
6 figures, you can't complain.
Right.
Low cost of, I don't have a ton of overhead.
A lot of it's pure profit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, how do I take it to the next level? And I had a team leader when I worked at Keller Williams, and he said, you need to get into coaching. And I was like, well, I no idea what does that even entail? And he's like, well, it's $1,000 a month, but it's worth it. And so it was a big leap of faith because $1,000 a month, it's 12 grand a year.
Yeah, that's like what? I mean, 8, 12, 10% of your take home.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that in 10 months, I went from $5-6 million a year to $13 million.
Stop it.
So that investment,
you almost tripled.
Yes.
From a $12K yearly outlay to almost tripling your gross sales.
Yep.
That's
and
sick.
It was
any
just,
additional overhead team wise? Well, you have to service that business, right?
At that point, I picked up one assistant.
Okay.
But it was a part-time
Okay.
assistant.
And that's just to handle the contracts, the paperwork, the
Paperwork.
admin stuff.
Admin.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that was just a big change. And then I wanted to grow more. So then I wanted to hire a team, or I wanted to hire other agents to come on board. And that's when it gets a little bit tricky.
Yeah, because then you're human resources and managing people and personalities. And I do that, and that sucks.
It sucks. My monthly overhead was anywhere from probably $11,000 to $18,000 a month.
You gotta sell a lot of homes.
So it's a lot of homes.
You feel the pressure then, don't you? And then did that change your personality?
Yeah. And being a single mom and trying to make time for the kids and trying to make time for me.
Right.
It just, my concentric circles of, self-family business got way wonky.
Right. Then, because I struggle with this, then you just got consumed business. Then you're like, dude, I have $18K a month I got to cover. Where's the contract?
It's not. And then I have employees that are counting on that. And they are, sole proprietors for their family. And it's like, this sucks. And sometimes I'm not taking any profit because I have to pay stuff out to them to make sure. And I'm like,
or even worse than that, sometimes you're taking out of your personal savings to meet payroll.
Yes.
And I've been in business for 10 years, and there's a handful of times where I've done that.
Yeah.
And that is like, what am I doing?
It sucks.
Yeah. You've been there?
Sucks. I've totally been there. Totally been
but
there.
you know
or
you have
I've taken out of my separate savings account that's set aside for taxes.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is not. Like,
and you know
happening.
that you have to do that because the business is this like living, breathing animal, and you have to feed it, and feeding it is cash.
Yeah.
But if you don't feed it that month, you're not going to get back on cycle in the next few months where the business was taking good care of you.
Exactly.
That's terrifying.
It's super terrifying. And then, my coach told me, because I was upset. There were certain times I was upset. I said, because the return on the investment.
Yeah, sure. My bad. That's mine. Yeah.
The return on investment for certain, different employees isn't there. So, it's supposed to be 8 to 10, times the return on the investment. So he said, Valorie, you're responsible to, not responsible for. And so that was
Explain
just
that to me.
So I'm responsible to do the activities that I'm supposed to do every day. So I'm responsible to make the calls, to go on the appointments, to do that stuff. But I'm not responsible for their livelihood. I'm not responsible for them being able to provide, because at some point they also have to step up and say, being part of this team, I need to hustle too.
You're basically saying this is like you have a plan that's worked for X amount of years that you put in place. If you put this plan in place, and because of abnormalities in marketplace dynamics, if for some reason you're not hitting benchmarks that month, it's not because of you. It's because the marketplace was funky that time. So you're responsible too, because you're putting the plan that's worked for long periods of time, but you're not responsible for because the market had these things that impacted your. Is that what you're saying?
It's that, but it's just not being responsible for somebody else's livelihood. Like at some point, they also have to take ownership of it and step up into their own space. So if they're seeing holes in the business or holes in the ship, they have to help plug those holes. That it's not always part of being on a team. It's not always my responsibility to 100% carry 100% of the weight.
Right, but I struggle with that, and playing devil's advocate with you, why I struggle with that is not everyone on the team has vision. Not everyone on the team is able to figure out. They want to be told and given a clear-cut plan.
Guess how big my team is.
So is it you?
It's me.
Yeah, all right. So you figured it out.
Yeah.
You're like, this stinks.
Yeah, it sucked because I got tired of it. And the other part of it was that I was having my brand out there, and I had other people representing my brand.
Right.
And they weren't representing it like me. And so I was having to
and
step
it's like
in.
deja vu right here with what we're going through. Go on.
Yeah, so I was having to step in after the fact and put out fires, and they're mad at me because it's my name, my brand, my company. And that just got to a point where I was like, you know what? If I want to take this to the true next level, because there's a big difference between having a job and having a business. Agree?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So, there was, when I had the team, it was a business because I could step out of it. I could go on a trip with my kids or my family.
And I also think there's a big difference between having a job, having a business, and having a company.
Yeah.
Because a job and a business is something that is like, in some ways, in what you're building is a company, because you're building an organization that's not tied to you. So if you have to peace out for 2 weeks to go to the beach and have a good time and recenter, your company still runs. I struggle with this.
Yes.
A lot of ways, I Love CVille has become Jerry Miller, become me.
But you have to do this every day.
Right.
And so this has been, and I know we're going to get into this later with the real estate coaching, but there's a big aha that I had, and we can kind of get into that later, is that unless you want to be, you have to figure out a way to not be in the business. You have to figure out a way. And so I have been able to find ways. But don't get me wrong, I love selling real estate.
Sure,
because you're good at it. I love meeting new people.
Yeah.
I love, seeing
Is this your favorite aspect of the job?
This
is my favorite aspect of the job. It's like meeting people, negotiating, like driving deals.
It is. Yeah. And I have a really good knack for, there's some agents that are on the other side of the transaction, and they are hair on fire.
Yeah.
And I'm like, chill out.
It doesn't need to be a war.
No.
It can be a pleasant experience.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, a home inspection comes up, and there's a mold or pipes, different types of plumbing that is antiquated, and I'm like, guys.
Quest Plumbing. Oh my God.
Yeah. And I'm
my God.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Right.
Quest only is failing at the joints.
Right. Only at the copper joints, guys. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Just change them.
So if the house has all the copper joints replaced and the PEX is only on the straightaways, it's okay.
Yeah. You're do what you got to do. We will figure it out.
Yeah. So just don't. What is the word I'm looking for?
Kibosh the deal.
Sensationalize.
Right.
Like, don't sensationalize the home inspection. Like, they're coming to us as the professionals to be like, hey, everything can be fixed. Everything, yes, it costs money. We'll get the seller to pay for this. And if the seller won't pay for all of it, then we won't do it at that point. But realize that this isn't the end of the world. You guys love the house, right? This is the house that you enjoy and want to, share memories with and spend the rest of your life in. or a portion of your life in.
And I think that's one of the benefits of working with an agent experience like you is because you've seen so many different things come up. You're like, dude, this isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
I pull from my experience from this happening a couple months ago, and this is what we did.
Yeah.
So chill out.
Yeah, this
that
is
pretty
okay.
much? Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, you know,
So-
and one thing, a lot of people are jumping on here. Ray Cadell says, hair on fire. I like that. That was hilarious, Val. But Ray Cadell, thank you for your support. April
Thanks,
Ward
Ray.
says, it's all about meeting new people and making connections,
Yeah.
which is what you're saying. Bobby Castine, thank you for joining us. Denise Hurst-Ramey, thank you for joining us. Caitlin Michelle Lewis, thank you for joining us. Scott in Virginia Beach, thank you for joining us. Josephine at the Newsplex, thank you for joining us. We're talking with Val, and we're talking everything about, you know, her career, how she's built this empire, what she thinks about Charlottesville. And one of the things that she put in perspective for us is you got to 13 or so million with a team in place. And when
Just
you're an assistant.
Yeah.
Okay. So 13 million with an admin, and then you're like, I want to start doing this myself. How hard was it to say, because you want to build a huge brand.
Yeah.
You're an entrepreneur.
Then I started thinking about it.
Uh-huh.
So what part of that is ego?
That's what I struggle
And-
with. Like, I want to be like McDonald's,
And-
or, you know, I want to build this big thing.
But then part of it is like, I really don't care. Like, it's just like, I don't
care more about my quality of life
Yeah.
than the big brand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then it's like, well, what really, like, is that something that I really want to do? And then, you know, I'm looking at people, like I saw somebody the other day on Facebook talking about like all of these health issues that they were going through, but they were running themselves ragged with real estate. And I'm sitting here, I'm like,
If you don't have your health, who cares if you're successful?
yeah. I was
Is that
like,
what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is wrong? Like you lose your family. So I talk, you know, with the business coaching, I talk about the 4 burners of life. So we have our family, we have ourself, we have our business, and we have our friends. And, you know, typically anyone, not just a real estate agent, any self-employed, they're like, okay, to be really successful, I have to turn off 1 burner. So what's the first one they turn off?
I mean, it's not going to be your family, because if it was family, my wife would, that's not going to happen, okay? It's not going to be my
Yeah.
kid. It can't be the business.
Yeah.
The business sustains my kid and I mean, it's probably your friends.
It's actually yourself.
Is it yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah?
So a lot of the people I end up coaching, they've gained 30, 40, 50 pounds.
Don't sleep.
60 plus.
Eat crappy at
They're
their
on
desk.
the road, eat crappy,
Yeah.
don't sleep.
Right.
You know, they turn off themselves. And then the next group.
Somehow I've turned off myself and some of my friends.
Yeah. The second
No balance
one.
over here.
Well, the second one, so you're better at it
Yeah,
because
I'm
the
trying.
second group that people typically turn off is their family. And so you'll see in certain industries, like if you go to conventions, you'll see people having affairs, cheating, and it's gross, but they're turning off their family because they've completely consumed themselves in work. And I see people answering the phone at 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night. You're neglecting your family. So at some point you have to say, enough is enough. And if you answer that phone at 7 o'clock at night, you have just put a sign out that says, I am open for business.
Interestingly, my wife is watching right now. So what she's saying right now, she's like, I love this person, Valorie. Jerry, listen to Valorie right now. Take what she's saying
Yeah.
to heart. Jerry, here's what I struggle with, okay? And I'm going to play devil's advocate with you. I answer the phone at wrong times. I'm emailing constantly. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, which is often because my son is 9 months old and crying, is check my email.
It actually shows your days will be less productive if you check your email first thing in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Ferriss has outlined this really well with how email's negatively impacting everything. Where I'm going with this is, it's like, Val, I need the business to have success to pay and help support the family. The business is helping the family. If I don't focus on the business, the family suffers. But if I do focus on the family, the business could suffer.
No, that's not true.
It's hard.
It's not easy yet. And you really have to pay attention to the words. I wholly believe the words you use, because it's that whole, like, your mind eavesdrop, your cells eavesdrop on your thoughts, which eavesdrop. And so, like, you have to watch your words. And so it's not easy yet. And, you know.
So you got it down to 40 hours a week.
Not even.
Okay, so I mean, I'm grinding 80
don't
hours
even
a
know.
week. Here. I'm doing 80 hours a week easily every. The
Yeah.
only vacation I've taken in 10 years was my honeymoon.
No.
How many hours are you clocking?
Oh, gosh. Like, honestly, maybe 8.
8 hours a week. Stop it.
Probably.
You are not doing 8 hours a week.
It's
you are.
true.
You're doing
Yeah.
8 hours. Hold on. Okay, I got to talk to this because if you're really doing this is ridiculous. There's a lot of people listening. 8 hours a week, and you're doing, what kind of sales are we talking?
So this year, I did probably over 400, almost 400 in commissions.
Okay, 400,000 in commissions. 400,000 in commissions. A team of one.
Well,
Well, you have the team below
I had
you.
the team up until about end of May. So.
This is startling. What are you doing?
We started looking at my schedule.
Uh-huh.
And so what was I really doing with time blocking? And
Yeah.
so I had my schedule time blocked. I have a Google Calendar,
Uh-huh.
and I block off big chunks of time. And so what was I actually doing and what was I not doing? And then we started kind of backing into it. And my coach was like, that's exhausting. Like, how do you even do that? And I was like, well, I don't. Like, that's what happens. I'm working 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
It's not happening. So then we started making it realistic. And I worked backwards. And he said, okay, so what schedule do you want to have? And so I did a mock calendar of what I wanted to have.
And I'm sure it was based around your kids' schedules. You love your
schedule,
kids. Yeah.
What I personally wanted to do, what I wanted to be obligated to.
Okay.
And, and it was with the business coaching and the real estate portion as well.
Okay.
And so I kind of backed into that schedule. And then I started putting people into their spots. So when people would call, because a lot of times in real estate, they're like, well, I want to look at it now. And I'm like, I'm not available at this time, but I look at my calendar and I'm like, I'm available here, here, and here. And if none of those times work, I have somebody else that I work with that I could refer you off to.
Right, and you get a kickback.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I would do that, and and I tell people right off the bat, I said, I have my kids. I'm a single mom. I have my kids every other week. I'm already missing out on half of their
Sure.
life.
Yeah.
So when I get them from school at 2:30, or on the weekend that I have them, I will not answer the phone.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I said,
admire that about you.
Yeah, and I said, you can text me, and I may respond, but if not, I will definitely respond the next business day. And I said, if there's an emergency, call 911, because if your house is on fire or if any of that,
Don't call your
is
real
like,
estate agent.
yeah, it's like I can't help
Right, you're
you.
not going to put out the fire.
I can't do it.
What have you lost clients because of that?
Not that I'm aware of, but maybe
They've adapted
maybe.
to you?
They've adapted.
They've adapted.
Because it's a business. You don't
Right.
call your attorney.
You're basically saying, I'm not going to go to the Nook for scrambled eggs at 3 a.m.
Yeah, run it like a business. And that's what you have to do, is just run it like a business. And people respect that.
I think the thing is the fear from the business owner, of the entrepreneur, of losing the business makes them succumb to things they shouldn't
But that's coming from a scarcity mindset. And I'm in the whole, you have to have that abundance mindset. Because,
But
the
you've
book
been
The
able
Secret.
to you've been able to get to that mindset by having success. You could not have had this mindset from day one.
I could have.
You could have had this
I totally could
Yeah.
have.
Well, you would have lost accounts on that on day. You would have lost clients on day one. Now you wouldn't, because now you wouldn't. And I'm playing devil's advocate with you.
Yeah.
Why I don't think you would now is because you're freaking Valorie Easter,
But-
and I'm
but you
giving you
don't-
props to that. You have
Yeah.
a great
But
real estate brand.
True, but a new person that comes in from somewhere, they have no idea who I am. Sometimes people do.
How many
but
how many clients are you dealing with that have never been touched by the Valorie Easter brand?
Quite a few.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for
but
you.
I do get a lot of referrals from agents in other markets.
Okay.
And so, they have known me through social media or through other platforms, but these people come in and have no idea who I am. And so I just outlay the same thing with them, and people respect that, because I tell them, look, here's why. Because when I am meeting with you or when I am speaking to you, my phone's off. I'm not taking
undivided
text messages.
attention.
Yeah, and so you're getting that focus right then.
Yeah.
And so, I time block my administrative time. I time block my lead generation time. I time block my emails, my blog posts, my, whatever else I'm doing. You just put it on your calendar, and then you stick to that calendar. And so, say your first week, you stick to it, 50% of the time. The next week, try to stick to it 75% of the time. And just, that time that is allocated for you, I change my voicemail and I do autoresponders. And so it's just
amazing. We're going to keep talking about this. Valorie Easter, our guest on the I Love CVille show, thanks to Greenberry's Coffee. Stacy Brookman, Harry Lynn, Tim Morris, Laura Fonner, Wesley Amons from Duck Medic. Thank you very much for joining us. Andre Xavier says, Jerry, you need a freaking vacation. Call CVille Travel right now. We'll take care of you. Dude, I have had one vacation in 10 years. No BS. I'm not complaining because what I'm building is something solid here. Spotlight's on Valorie, though. Jeff Easter Remodeling, entrepreneur.
Yep.
Business owner. Melissa Easter launches Taza, in some ways is instrumental in creating the Belmont brand.
Yeah.
I think Taza and Belmont hand in hand. How have entrepreneur parents Jeff and Melissa impacted you?
This is actually a funny story. So the first job I had out of college was actually working for this company called Levitt and Sons.
Okay.
And it was a production builder, and I was the secretary at the front desk. Because the whole thing was when I got my real estate license, they were going to let me be the site agent and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So my whole life, I've grown up around entrepreneurs. And so I always have looked to see inefficiencies and how to do things better.
Right.
And so can you imagine
see
what
opportunity
happened?
Everywhere.
Can you imagine what happened with me sitting at the front desk doing busy work?
Yeah, you were like, go on. I don't want to take it.
So I saw all these ways to market these properties and things to do. And apparently there's like a specific chain of command that you're supposed to go through. But I just jumped it.
Right.
I was like, well, I know he can't, answer this or take care of this. So I just go to that guy because I know he's the one that can do it. Well, it's apparently frowned upon.
Yeah, obviously you're an entrepreneur in a low-end totem pole job. And you're like, I'm not going to do with this bureaucracy bullshit.
Oh my gosh, it was awful. And so I just couldn't do it. Like I got to the point where I talked to the guy, I got my license, and he's like, well, you need to be in this position and I was like, that wasn't the deal. Bye, basically. Like I'll put in my 2 weeks and move on. But that's kind of what happened with that entrepreneurial part it was like, you just get you start seeing things differently. And if any of you guys have read the book Strengths Finders, I'm a strategizer. So my mind will automatically find
we're the same people.
15 different ways to achieve the same outcome. And it just does it.
Yeah. She's killing it. J-Dub, one thing on the notes here, we're going to tighten this mic for the next show. Valorie, I'm sorry you're having to deal with this. This is completely on our end. We'll make sure that's tight next time. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs as well. Uncles, my dad and mom owned a CPA practice, 2 of them. They exited from one in Florida, moved to Newport News, and exited another one. I grew up in the copier room when the copier room was a thing in an office where you had an entire room for a copier. Me and my brother were like rolling our balls next to the copier and the reams of paper. Where I'm going with this is like I always remember like my parents just grinding, and it was just like I look back on it and I'm like that nature versus nurture, that influence is why I'm here now.
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's funny because I think back, like with my dad, with the construction industry. So there were times, because every house we ever moved into, he ripped apart.
Was it always good times for Jeff Easter Remodeling, or was it like the market? Do you remember struggles? With
So this is an interesting story that a lot of you guys might not know. So when we first moved to Virginia, so I was born in Oklahoma. My father's from Charlottesville. My mom's from Oklahoma.
Did he play at Western?
Played at Albemarle.
He played at Albemarle. And then he had football scholarships
at
NC State.
With Lou
NC
Holtz.
State, that's right. Yeah.
So when we first moved, his first job, and I was 6 years old. So this is 6-year-old memory. We lived way out in Whitehall. And I remember it was Route 5, Box 346 was their address. And we lived in the upstairs of this burnt out house.
You, Melissa, and Jeff.
And my brother and sister. My brother was just born.
Okay.
So it was 1987.
Okay.
And I remember they couldn't afford to turn the heat up really high at night. And so I remember my sister and I shared a bed, and my mom would blow dry the sheets so we had warm, we'd at least get warm getting in the bed. And then I remember we were just renting that. And then they bought this house off of Garth Road on Pine Garth Run. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, so we have to live in. I remember the door to death, like they had torn off the back deck and the door was just there. We'd sneak out that door.
So you could plummet down and fall?
Yeah, we'd jump, sneak out, like all that stuff. But he redid that house. It was like this little hunting cabin. And so tore up that house. And, we did flooring. We did, taught us how to do drywall. We swung the hammer. We did nails. And so,
awesome.
We
Work
learned.
ethic.
Yeah, so we learned kind of that whole process. But as hard as my dad worked, he was home every evening for dinner.
Wow.
And he coached my brother, sister, and I, all of our sports teams.
Get out.
And
Jeff, good for you.
He coached soccer, basketball,
That's baller.
like he coached everything. And I'm thinking, because I coached with my son and my daughter's team. I'm like, this is a big commitment. To do it all the time.
Right,
and,
especially for an entrepreneur.
Yeah, but that was the family. He kept the family circle because that's the most important. And so that helped, through the years, keep me back center and realize that that's what needs to happen.
How about the venture for your mom in La Taza? Because you were there from the beginning.
From the beginning.
I was there from the beginning. I lived on Little Graves then, and I was like, "There's a coffee shop coming. They have good food. I can have coffee here and do my." Because I was staff writer for the newspaper. I was writing stories from there, and I saw your sister. Was she a partner in the beginning?
She just worked there.
She was like general manager?
I was the manager in the very beginning. So that was in June of 2005.
Okay. Wow.
I feel like.
It's crazy.
Because what happened was I was getting married in October of 2005. So my rental ran out in Florida. So I came back up to Virginia until the wedding. And then I was going back down to Florida. So I helped her from June until October. And I just couldn't deal with it because there's a severe lack of common sense, I feel like. And I don't know if it's just restaurant, so I don't want to be like too hard about that, but I think it's in everything.
I think the average person is just the dum-dum.
It was so frustrating for me. And it was funny because I was actually out in Fluvanna County getting a passport picture for my son, and somebody had...
You went to Fluvanna County for a passport picture?
Well, because you can go to the post office there or the courthouse and get your passport the same day instead of going up to D.C.
Right.
So I remember somebody had gone kayaking, or there was a car in the river right there. And so somebody came in and he was like, apparently some lady was going to take her kayaks into the river and forgot to put on the parking brake and the car went into the river. Well, and I was like, well, the river's racing right now. I mean, it was probably 6 feet over flood stage. And I was like, that's a little crazy. He's like, you'd think she'd have a little common sense. And the lady at CVS, she was like, well, there ain't nothing common about it anymore. I think it's just sense.
Yeah. It's so true. It's just sense.
I fell out laughing. I was like, you're right.
She's totally right. She's
Got
totally
it.
right.
It's just sense. But it was so funny.
When you were watching Melissa in La Taza opening, I remember watching. I'm like, I think these people are just trying to figure this out on the fly.
Yeah, it was
literally every day was a different day in there. There was okay, and they're figuring it out.
Restaurant.
Right,
now we're gonna have sandwiches. Now we're gonna have breakfast.
Was there a plan? But she made it work.
She did,
Yeah.
and that's the biggest thing is that I always tell people getting into any business is that a lot of people are like, well, I've got to do this, this, and this before I do this. It's that whole saying. Imperfect action beats perfect inaction is so true.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, you have to just fail forward.
You're basically saying paralysis of the
analysis
is the enemy of productivity. And that's so true. I go about it like I'm just going to do it. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to pivot and try something else.
Yeah.
But I don't care if I mess up.
Yeah, you have to mess up. I mean, nobody goes through life perfect.
Right.
I mean, you screw up, you learn from it, and you fail forward. And it's just you wash, rinse, repeat.
When she created La Taza and when your family built this brand in Belmont, I mean, I remember the beginning. It was consuming you guys from a time standpoint. She was always there. I remember she had that she might still have it, that hatchback gray Nissan, kind of like a sports car.
The Z.
Yeah, the Z. And it was always parked in that spot. I'm like, is Melissa sleeping here? Yeah. I mean, you guys did everything.
Hours.
I mean, put that in perspective for the folks watching, because La Taza's loved.
It was a labor of love.
Yeah.
And it just, truly, we went to Costa Rica and gosh, it was in 2003, 2004. And Mom just fell in love with the culture, the coffee, the food. And she wanted to bring that back to Charlottesville because it was just something that was so, she found a passion. And so that's really, when it becomes that passion, that labor of love, you don't really feel like you're working.
Oh, of course not. Yeah, when you make your passion your profession, you're not working. Let's thank some folks for watching. Laura Fonner, Dooner's Restaurant, on the cast. Thank you, Laura, for joining us. Tim Morris, thank you very much for joining us. People hopping in and out. If you have a question for Val, myself, we're happy to answer on the live stream. I have a lot of questions I want to get to. We have filled 40 minutes already, and it feels like 8, which is a testament to you. I think some of these are important questions here. You just purchased a home or a property in Richmond. Guys, listen to how ballsy Valorie is, okay, and the courage she has. She goes to Richmond, buys a townhome at auction without seeing it, touring it, knows nothing about it. You did have some important information to help you make this purchase.
Okay.
Put the whole deal in perspective for us, because a lot of people don't know about this kind of stuff.
So my biggest thing, the Richmond market versus the Charlottesville market. So why I do both is because you can get, like, this house is walking distance. It's kind of the equivalent of being...
There's a ton of cheap inventory in Richmond that's in very good neighborhoods close to everything.
I mean, it's literally like being, 4 blocks from this location where we are right now, downtown.
Yeah. And it's cheap.
And I paid $200,000 for it. And it's 2,000 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. It's 3 blocks from the Siegel Center, VCU, great rental property, investment property. And there's just a ton of opportunity like that in Richmond. And a lot of that stuff in Charlottesville, because we're just smaller, we don't have
the inventory. Yeah.
We don't have the inventory.
Yeah.
We can't make new dirt.
Right.
And it's just kind of the way it is.
Right.
So it was so funny because I was just looking on Zillow and I saw this house pop up and I was like, oh, it's kind of a cool house. And I clicked on it. It's like, oh my gosh, it's at auction. Oh no, there's only 6 hours left.
Get out. Oh my God. 6 hours left.
6 hours
left. I have goosebumps right now.
Yeah.
This is so awesome.
Yeah.
So keep telling me this.
So I start.
Stop it.
Yeah. So I start like looking at it and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put a bid on it. It's like, what's the worst?
How hard is it to do that? How do you do that?
So I was on auction.com.
Okay.
And I set up an account.
Okay.
And I just went in and put in a bid.
Okay.
And I kind of screwed myself out a little bit.
Okay.
So
Can you tell us how?
So this is how.
Okay.
So the reserve wasn't met.
Okay.
And I didn't know that they would still sell the property even if the reserve wasn't met.
So you went to the reserve threshold.
So I kept bidding against myself trying to reach the reserve. And then finally I was like, you know what, screw this. Like if it doesn't do it, it's just not gonna work. So I probably added an extra 30 grand.
Okay. First time.
Yes, it was first time. But it was held by Wells Fargo. It was an auction for Wells Fargo. It was occupied at the time. So I'm like, great, I'm gonna have to evict people.
Did you have to evict them?
No.
So
I couldn't find a prior MLS because it had never been in the MLS.
It had never been on the MLS? How is that possible?
I don't know. So I couldn't. I was like, well, like I said, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Well, then I get an email. I won. I was like,
were you terrified and happy at the same time? Yeah, you're like,
it's
shit.
awesome,
Yeah.
But
right.
So then I started doing a little more research, and so I looked into it and I Googled the address.
Can you back out at the time that you win, or is it no? Because the money up front is non-refundable?
So at that point, I'd only put down like a $2,000 deposit.
Okay.
At the time.
Okay.
And then you have to do 10% of the price, and you can put it with their title company, or you can choose your own.
So $20K.
Yeah.
So your skin in the game at that point is $22K on a $200K home.
Yeah. No. Wait. I only had to put like $13,000 down.
Okay.
So maybe I only had to put 5%.
Okay. So 5% down. Yeah.
So then I started doing a little more research. Well, then I saw the property in 2006. I saw a picture of it condemned, and it was completely gutted. And then then I saw where some permits had been pulled in 2007. There's a lot of stuff you can find on tax record. And then I saw where there was an appraisal on file for $295.
So then you're
So it's
like,
like,
I
okay.
think I got a freaking steal right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they had gotten that appraisal.
Because if people are living in the home, it clearly had to be remade
And
after
was
it got
habitable.
condemned. Right.
So I knew it was habitable. It was brick.
Right.
And so then I figured, I was like, okay, so the HVAC system is like 2007 at the oldest, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
And then they took out a line of credit, and I was assuming to do improvements to the property.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, so now they're further improving it from the 295 appraisal.
And the
that was
line
on
of
fire.
credit was against the property,
Against
not
the
against
property.
another home.
It was against the property.
Okay,
And
that's why
'cause-
they defaulted.
Yeah.
And it was a spec home, and they're like, F this, I'm bouncing.
Yep.
I don't even care if someone takes this from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently, so I reached out to the bank and I was like, am I going to have to evict these people? And so then I looked, and then right after I then drive by and kind of check it out, and then I see all this crap outside, and I was like,
I remember because you put that on Facebook. There was trash all.
Yeah.
I follow you.
Yeah.
There was trash all up on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
It was overgrown. I remember you did the before and after of the outside. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this lady's killing it.
Yeah. So they actually moved. So typically what they'll do is like a cash for keys, and they'll give them some money to vacate the property.
Bank.
And so they moved out.
Okay.
So I didn't have to evict anybody, and I went in. The only issue was it had some hail damage on the roof that had a minor roof leak. It cost me $250. Like, that was it.
So crazy. So what's the plan?
So I'm repainting. I have to repaint everything. It has hardwood downstairs. I'm probably going to eventually do some new flooring upstairs. And my plan is I'm going to lock the master, just put a lock on it, and I'm going to Airbnb the other 2 bedrooms with the full bath and the half bath.
Love it. And you're probably like maybe $125 a night, depending what's going on at the Siegel Center.
Yeah.
You're probably thinking maybe 15 to 20 nights a week.
Yeah.
15 to 20 nights a month.
A month.
Yeah. And then what do you think is the turnaround on this? What do you think is gross you can do on here versus
I
overhead?
think I
Because your overhead's probably what, like $1,050 a month mortgage?
Mortgage is $800 and something.
That's ridiculous. HOAs?
No.
Taxes, insurance, everything. So you're probably
Taxes.
$1,100 out of pocket a month.
Yep.
Okay. And
with
what do you think you're
utilities
grossing?
and everything with that.
And
So I'll probably make $1,200 to $1,500 a month on that.
So property covered free and clear, that's
Yeah.
churning $300 to $400 a month.
Yep.
And then the mortgage. How do they do the mortgages on the properties at auction? Are they short terms?
I did cash
Okay.
for that one because you couldn't get an appraiser in there. You couldn't do any of that stuff.
Okay.
But like we had talked about this before, is that there's ways to purchase properties. You can leverage your
assets.
IRA, your
Yeah.
assets.
Yeah.
You can get a hard money loan. You can, like, there's so many ways that you can purchase things with cash that aren't really cash.
Right.
But it's not necessarily traditional ways to purchase homes. So you have to get creative.
And
And that's
I-
that whole strategizer part.
Right. And we'll talk about this shortly because she's putting out a book where some of these strategies are in there. We'll cover that with her.
Yep.
She just bought a spec home in Richmond. We covered the dynamics of how she went about doing it. Why do you like the Richmond market? And I'll give you a layman's perspective. Layman's perspective, Charlottesville, it's good to be an established real estate agent because the inventory is such little supply that the price points stay very high.
Yeah.
Richmond market is almost the antithesis of this in that there is a ton of freaking inventory. Tons of inventory. And I'm talking about inventory, guys, where you can buy a legitimate home, legitimate standalone home for under $250,000 in a quality neighborhood. Are you just like, it's a numbers game and there's a ton more inventory and supply out there?
Ton more inventory. They have these, they're called opportunity zones.
Yeah.
And so you can actually purchase homes in those opportunity zones, and as many, like, I think after 10 years, and don't quote me on this, I think your capital gains is completely taxed.
Stop it.
Deferred.
And that's how they're trying to get neighborhoods to get gentrified?
Yes.
Is that essentially gentrification?
Yes. So you have to, whatever you pay for the property, you have to put into it. So if you pay $100,000, you have to put $100,000 into it. But it's such a great way to, you're changing these neighborhoods. You've got
And to
Lakeside,
protect your money
Richmond.
from
You have-
exposure.
Yeah.
Isn't that, you know?
Yeah, the north side of Richmond is booming. All those areas are coming around. You've got Churchill's kind of already come and gone. You've got Manchester, which is some beautiful. I mean, the architecture is beautiful.
Sure.
I mean, my house was built in 1915.
I love Richmond. Richmond's awesome. You walk everywhere. Were you concerned about taking your eyes off the prize and your home base?
I mean, you have to be willing to take a risk if you want to do anything that's worthwhile.
So we're talking with Val and how she's built her career. How about hot spots in Charlottesville? I asked Michael Guthrie on this. I had Michael Guthrie on the show. I like Michael Guthrie. He's a good guy. And I said, where, if you were a first-time home buyer or if you were a real estate investor looking to flip or buy and hold, where would you put your money in? And he said the Orangedale neighborhood. Off Fifth Street. He said you can buy duplexes for like $150.
Yep.
You can buy one side for, depending on the condition, maybe $100. He thinks potentially somebody's going to come in and buy 20 duplexes, drop a couple $1 million, and then build a neighborhood.
I agree
What do you
with
think?
that. I definitely agree with that.
Okay.
I think anywhere over by like Grady Avenue, 11 and a half,
Yeah.
anywhere over there, because I think that eventually the university is going to come buy all that stuff down the road because it's growing, it's not shrinking. I think that's a great investment spot. Anywhere that you can rent to students because their parents, it's guaranteed pay from that point. I have people that, they'll only invest in the government. So they'll do Section 8 housing because the government
it's a guarantee check. Yeah,
Yep.
You don't have to chase your rent money.
Yep. So
but
that's
also,
one way.
sometimes when you're dealing with that tenant, though, there is property destruction on the back end.
And I haven't heard, somebody told me that they'll actually pay, the government will actually pay for those repairs.
Really?
I'm not sure on that.
So that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm not positive on that, but I heard that there was some reimbursement aspect for repairs should things get damaged.
Interesting.
But look into that. Like, I hear all kinds of stuff.
Sure. You're a connected person. I mean, do you think that real estate investors, a lot of times real estate investors looking to enter the market are looking for that quick flip, quick turnaround. I mean, is Charlottesville the market to do it? And why I'm asking for that is because the price points in the city of Charlottesville are just too high now.
It's hard. Like, you will have to pound the pavement and knock on doors to find a house that you'll be able to get at the right price. Because, like, once it hits the open market, it's going to get bid up.
Right, like 5 bids.
You already have, like, a pocket of investors that have, the inside track on stuff that you're not even going to get the opportunity at.
Yeah.
So, there's really, you have to pound the pavement. You have to talk to people. You have to get out in the neighborhood, start meeting people, talk to the neighbors, figure out who wants to sell, what's going on. And, it's a lot of work. But like I said, anything that's worthwhile is.
Sure.
But it's a lot easier.
I mean, it's a lot easier in Richmond.
It's a lot
easier in Richmond. That's why you went to Richmond. You're a smart
easier.
businesswoman. Harry Lynn, thank you for joining us. Michael Guthrie, just talking about you, Michael Guthrie, and giving you some props. Thank you for joining us, Michael. Chaz Webster, our boy on the mix. Tim Morris.
I've helped Harry look at some stuff.
Harry Lynn. Harry Lynn's good. He and his wife have twins.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Harry Lynn's good people. We like you here on the show, Harry. We're talking about which neighborhoods in Charlottesville do you see holding their value?
So downtown, always.
Yeah.
I mean, you always have anywhere downtown, anywhere by the university, anywhere western
How
side.
can Belmont continue to sustain of what it's doing? I mean, Val, I lived in Belmont at Little Grace in 2005 when you were opening La Taza, and I saw some sketchy freaking you-know-what in Belmont. That's when it was like gentrified. Now I go to Belmont, and it's like white, yuppies, professionals, $500,000 homes. Are you not worried that that's not sustainable? I mean,
people are always going to want to be downtown. Like,
Glenmore,
that's where stuff
I love this conversation. Let's play devil's advocate here. You have homes in Glenmore with DOMs, days on the market, that are over 200 and 300 days. $500,000 to $650,000 homes that are 5,000 square feet.
Why do you want a 5,000 square foot house?
5,000. I think.
Why do you want that?
I think the best price per square in Central Virginia is Glenmore.
100%.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't want a 5,000 square foot house.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like that McMansion American dream that I'm kind of chasing.
No.
But how can a home be priced at $550,000 at 5,000 square feet that's all brick on half an acre with a clubhouse, walking trails, and amenities, and a $500,000 home exist in Belmont on .08 where I can reach out the window and touch my neighbor's home?
It's because people don't want to deal with crap.
Yeah.
They don't want to do the half acre of yard work. They don't want to do, and the house is smaller in Belmont because they want to go travel. They want to go do, other stuff, see their family all over the country. They don't want to have a ton of yard maintenance. And so they're willing to pay more for less to be close to the farmer's market, be close to the mall, be close to activities.
You're totally right. I want your best value neighborhood. I think my best value neighborhood, and granted, maybe the metrics speak against it because the homes ain't selling, but I think the best value neighborhood is Glenmore.
It's a great value, but
and another thing that's working against the neighborhood is the Ryan Homes development outside the entrance that's marginalizing price points there, and the clubhouse changing hands multiple times, which is creating insecurity in the hood. What are you saying is the best value neighborhood today?
Oh my gosh, best
that's a
value.
Tough one. And that's not you upsetting anybody. It's just giving a fair answer.
I think, so like from investment standpoint,
for
or just for living?
Home ownership.
For home ownership, probably the best values. Well, you
got
have
an answer.
Glenmore for that.
Yeah.
But you
higher
also
price
have,
point though. I'm gonna say it's Redfields.
I like Redfields.
It's my neighborhood.
I've always liked Redfields.
It's my neighborhood. I like driving value there.
That's a good value.
Yeah.
That's probably good if you want to be up that direction. I mean, you always have Old Lynchburg Road. Like, those are always good value. I like Redfields. For condos, I like the villas at Southern Ridge.
I have a spot at the villas.
Yeah.
Jeff Gaffney
Great
somehow wrote me into that.
value. For the HOA,
Yeah.
low HOA,
Yeah.
high, they give you a lot for a little.
Yeah. You have a spot there? You traded
sold
over
a
there?
lot over there,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's how you know about it. Villas
Yep.
is good.
A lot
I
over
think
there.
it's the lowest price point in that South Side
Yep.
area.
Yep, it is. So I love that area. The Monticello Overlook.
That's a good one.
It's cheap. They're cheap and easy to rent
Uh-huh.
if you can get a rentable unit, and it's a great location.
How is our boy and someone we look up to, Corin Capshaw on Riverbend Development, impacted Charlottesville? Because I look everywhere around Charlottesville, and whether people realize this or not, and Lauren Linsky, thank you for joining us on the show. Sarah Hill, thank you for joining us. Paula Stevenson, thank you for joining us. We're hopping right now, okay? I can't believe the show's almost over. Can we talk longer with you? Do you have time?
I do.
Okay. How has Capshaw impacted Charlottesville?
So he's done a lot for Charlottesville, and but I think that he's made smart business choices, and it's like even the community over there. Somebody was talking to me the other day, and they're like, "Well, we saw some reviews, and they weren't that great over
Which
there."
one?
The River Bend.
Riverbend Development, his company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Riverbend Development, and I was like, I haven't heard any complaints. So I think that's just some of the Charlottesville
Yeah.
kind of rumor mill
Yeah.
going along. But he's, the places where he's chosen to invest his money have been really smart, like in Belmont and stuff like that.
With
So
City
I think-
Walk.
Yeah, City Walk. So I think that he's actually helped grow those areas where people, like, think of when Moss was first there, when Belmont was, before even Taza was there.
Corin owns Moss, guys. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So
Think about that.
He had the foresight to get into that neighborhood before everybody else had the foresight to get into it. And I remember when Mom and Dad bought it, it was like people looked at them like, what? Like, what are you doing?
What you're saying when Mom and Dad bought the building in Belmont?
Yeah.
That's a great building.
Yeah, and
Did they just sold the building?
They just sold it.
Yeah.
And they had the vision to see what was possible there, and I think Corin has that vision to see what's possible.
Yeah, Corin, I think Corin is the most influential, impactful person in Charlottesville, and we are lucky to have Corin Capshaw in
and
Charlottesville.
It's not just Corin. He's a great team around him.
Oh, great. Alan Taylor's the man.
Yeah. And so it might not necessarily even be Corin.
Yeah.
A lot of it's Alan.
But I think a lot of it goes through Corin. And one of Corin's
Yeah.
team members on the show right now, Anna Tay. Thank you for joining Valorie and I. We know Anna Tay.
Yep.
Yeah, you grew up with Anna Tay.
Yep.
Right, so a lot of the folks you grew up with. Did you grow up with Laura Fonner? She went to Western.
I did.
Yeah, the Dooner chef here.
Yep.
Popular gal right here. I think, as soon as they built Allen and Riverbend and Corin Fifth Street Station, it's so crazy how the South Side became the hot spot to live.
Yep.
Because we were going to the Shitty Kitty previously, that food line over there. Remember the food line?
So after I sold I had the house on Locust,
Uh-huh.
and so I had bought this other house that had to be gutted up by the airport.
Uh-huh.
And so I had a real estate client that had a tenant move out, so he just needed somebody in there until the spring market. So I actually lived on the corner of Mosley and Harris.
Okay, so you know
Would
exactly what I'm
walk.
talking about.
Yeah, I'd walk in, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's an armed guard in this.
Yeah,
grocery
dude,
store.
my
It was
wife
awesome.
would not go to the food line after 8 p.m. because she feared for her life. A
Yeah.
little hyperbole there, but she would not.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how a grocery store impacts real estate values. It's just, it startles me. It also excites me here. A couple other questions I want to throw to you here.
Sure.
City versus county living. You've lived in both.
I like the county.
You live in the county now,
Yeah.
right? Is it because of the schools and your kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're right across from Meriwether. I fought a bear like all summer. I had like
Eating
bear
your
wars.
trash. Yeah.
Bear wars. I've had mouse wars. It's like a whole nother bugs that just don't, I didn't see in the city, like all that stuff that is, I enjoy
You
it.
seem more like a city gal.
That's why I love going to Richmond. Like
Yeah.
I love being able to walk and see what's going on, all the different activities.
Yeah,
and,
especially since your kids are older. Granted, the school
yeah.
piece is challenging.
Yeah, and when I'm out there, I feel kind of trapped. It's like you can't just run to the store real quick. It's like a 30-minute or more ordeal at that point with a round trip. So it's a little bit different, and I like it. Like it's quiet out there, and I'm in the woods and.
Your dog can run around. You don't have
dog
to worry
can
about
run
it. If he
around.
gets out, it's fine.
The deer taunt the dog.
Right.
Like it's just all that kinds of stuff.
How
which is
do you
fun, but-
respond to the clients that are like, we're concerned about Charlottesville City schools, and that's why we're going to the western part of Albemarle County for like Murray and Meriwether and Henley and Western. Is that legitimate? Are we hearing that often from clients, or is that something that can be like, look, dude, Charlottesville City schools are really actually pretty good. I mean, how do you handle that?
They're fine. Like everything's fine. It's
what you make of it.
It's what you make of it.
Yeah.
And it's what are you doing extra with your child? Are you letting the teachers raise your kid? Are you letting your teachers be the only ones that teach your kid?
Do you talk them out of it, or be like,
Yeah.
you do? You do say to the clients, look, guys, that's a stigma that's actually not reality, or do you just be like, okay, I can show you homes in the western part?
I have to just do that.
You just do that?
Yeah. I mean, I can't technically because of like fair housing and stuff.
Right.
I just, I have to talk about, okay, like if that's what you like, here are the resources that I can show you about, different areas if you, have any questions. But, because of that, I can't really point out.
You got to play it safe. You got to play it safe. Okay, 2 more questions, and then I want to talk about your book, and I can talk about a couple other things here. You've been in Charlottesville your entire life. Some current topic questions. This actually applies to you very much here. Pre and post 8/12, we have 2 different Charlottesvilles and 2 different environments and 2 different moods and 2 different ways we go about things. How did you think Charlottesville handled 8/12? Where are we going from here? As an entrepreneur, we want the best image for our town, so people continue wanting to move here and live here.
Yeah, I haven't had an issue. A lot of people haven't really been too concerned about moving into Charlottesville.
They have not.
But I've had a lot of people want to move out.
Interesting.
And which was kind of interesting to me. And I think part of it is, and I hate talking politics or getting political about stuff, but it's our leaders and it's our leadership. Because I think what's happened is that we've gotten really polarizing leadership. And so it's incredibly polarizing. But what does a leader do? A leader brings people together. And, that's not what we have right now. And, hopefully they can figure out a way to start bringing people together, because it's not about, it's not about the race. It's not about all that stuff. We're just people. Like, we're all people. And I get it. Like, I get stuff, sexist comments. I get things, stigma, you're blonde or you're just a dumb blonde. I've had people say that before. My very first real estate transaction.
Stop.
My very first real estate transaction, I had
Did you kick them in the...
No, I was actually incredibly proud of myself because...
you bit your tongue?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. He was a 65-year-old man, and he was screaming over something that it was a lender issue. And I had done so much work. I had used my father's architectural stuff to do house plans for him. He was buying 2 houses. This was in Jacksonville, Florida, and there were 2 houses that fronted one street, and he was getting them for like $46,000. So what was I making? Like
nothing.
$50.
Right. Nothing.
Like,
right.
With the time and effort and I'm putting into it. So he starts, screaming, and he's stomping around. And I remember the closing agent was probably 90 years old and had white hair, and I was waiting for her just to die, like keel over. I was like, she's gonna have a heart attack with this guy ranting and raving around. And so he hones in on me, and he's like, and you stupid blonde little girl, and I was like, and I remember like my face got flushed, and I'm 23 years old.
Rookie?
And, oh my gosh, total. Very first deal out of the gate. And I stood up and I said, you know what? I said, I have sat here and listened to you rant and rave and stomp around like a child. You can close or you cannot close, but I'm not going to be here. And I got up and I walked out. And I remember I got in the car and I was like shaking. And like 3 or 4 hours later, I get a phone call that he finally closed and it recorded.
And he never apologized.
Oh no, it gets better. So he calls me. This was like a week later, and he threatens me and tells me that I have to pay him $1,000. It's like I didn't even make $1,000 on it. And then he said that he was sprayed by Agent Orange and that he can do whatever he wants to do, not get in trouble for it. And I said, here's the deal. I was like, you never call me again or I'm going to get a restraining order out on you. And I never heard from him again.
That's awesome.
But that was my first deal, and I was like, this is awesome. I can't wait to get into real estate
you're like,
and sell more houses.
This is what I look forward to. Yeah. But the rest is history.
Yep.
Janice Cavanaugh, thank you for joining us here on the live broadcast. The book.
The book.
Talk to me about your book. She has a book coming out, guys.
I do. It's in the infant stages. So another agent, Keith Bliss, and myself, we're working on a book. And it's about an exit strategy for real estate agents, and it can be just for entrepreneurs or anybody in general. But it's primarily focused towards real estate agents because most of the books you see on the market are talking about how to get out of real estate through real estate investing.
Okay.
And this is actually we have 12 different ways, And one of the pillars that we're going to talk about is definitely through revenue share. So I was with a company that had profit share prior, but the new company that I'm with has revenue share. EXP. And so like my coach gets over $40,000-$50,000 a month in revenue share because of other people he's brought into the company that he's helping nurture and better their business. So they're kicking ass selling real estate. He's getting a percentage of their profit until they cap. And then, he's being able to cover his, income and put money aside for savings.
So when they cap, once they cap, there's no more contribution.
No.
So you hit a threshold, a benchmark. It's essentially paying your dues.
Yep.
And
Until
then you
the next
keep
year.
it all.
Yeah.
Oh, till the next year.
Till the next
year.
So
Gotcha.
you reset every year.
Interesting. And you think that's the future, huh?
It's definitely the future. And Keller Williams has been doing it for 30 years with profit share. EXP is a newer company that's doing it with revenue share, and they do stock options. So they have a publicly traded stock, which is EXPI on the NASDAQ. And so it's just you basically went from having a brick and mortar business, which was, the KW and the typical business model, to a cloud-based, and, they have way less overhead. We're provided with a ton of technology. At some times it's like drinking from a fire hose because it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff that we can do. But you just have to, and what I tell everybody that gets into it, I said, pick one thing, master it for a month or 2 weeks, however long you need.
Oh, you're talking technology-wise.
Yeah, technology. It's like then move to the next thing, then move to the next thing. So master SkySlip, master DocuSign, master, whatever you're implementing at that moment.
Well, and this model works really well with what you're trying to do of working smart and not hard. Because if you don't want to take the client's business because they won't fit in one of those allocated or blocked off areas of time, you're not hesitant then to pass the referral to someone in your network.
Yeah,
because you're still getting a piece.
Exactly. And my nut to crack is being covered every month with the revenue share. So anything else that I sell with real estate is just profit.
In some ways, it's almost better to pass it down the funnel into the chain because you make those people more successful, which means they stay in the business and keep grinding more.
Exactly.
Because if they're not scooping up any business from you, they're going to piece out from your team.
Exactly. And I've paid, I've been doing this for
15
years almost.
Yeah, you built a brand.
And so, at some point, you have to figure out how to work smarter, not harder. And even with the coaching business. So I started doing coaching, but then I was like, man, now I'm tied to these specific windows of time where I have to talk to these coaching clients, agents all over the country. And I was like, sometimes, I missed field trips with my kids because I couldn't, I was like, I can't keep moving around their coaching time, and this sucks because now my quality of life is being diminished.
Do you like the coaching?
I love coaching.
Yeah?
Yeah, I really, truly do.
Yeah, I bet you're good at it.
I really, really have always enjoyed coaching.
Yeah.
So this is what I did. So I'm creating a business right now where I'm teaching real estate agents how to go from a manual to an automated business that's authentic, and I'm doing it through an evergreen webinar product. So I'm doing it one time and recording it, and then I'm doing weekly live Q&As for people as they're working through the modules.
Evergreen webinar product means that the content she's creating does not have a timestamp and can last forever online as a resource to the people that are in her coaching tree. And then she does the live Q&A almost as like a town hall discussion where people who are accessing the evergreen content, if they have questions, they can ask you in this forum.
Yep.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
And it frees up my time.
It's so crazy how technology is revolutionizing the category. It's like Uber. It's like Uber for real estate.
But it's a higher level, because everybody's like, oh, well, it's automated, it sucks. It's like, no, it's a higher level of service. So like I just had a contract.
Well, it's just more efficient.
Yeah. And like we'll put it into perspective. So I have all these funnels that I've created. So I had a client that went under contract on Monday. So I put them in automatically. I have these cards that I've like written and designed. And so they'll get a card in the mail. Congratulations on your new home under contract. Stay tuned. In a couple days, you're going to get an email that's going to outline the home inspection process and some pitfalls to look out for. So I have a video. I have a whole thing about pitfalls to look out for and possible solutions.
You're setting expectations.
Yes. And they're not having to reach out to me because I'm answering all of their questions.
And is it you answering their questions and the content you send? And it, like, for anybody that says, oh, she's not there. Yes, she is there. There's the video. She's right there.
And
in fact, this is better because they can access it when you're not there.
All the time.
It's a refresh. it's a resource.
Yep, and then it updates
You're a
them.
smart lady.
Yeah, and then after that, it updates them about the appraisal process. What happens if the appraisal comes
Smart.
in low? Then the last email is them scheduling their walkthrough, so they can schedule it straight off the link on the site that works for them, that fits into my schedule, and it's a higher level of customer service that we can't do manually.
Well, and I think, and Lee Hughes, thank you for joining us on the broadcast commercial from CBRE. Thank you, Lee. Kate Reed, thank you for joining us. Andre's back. We appreciate you guys and the support. Valerie's crushing it. We knew she would. I think your model is money because it saves time, it's efficient, takes out the bullshit. I hate the bullshit.
Yeah.
And you, as an entrepreneur, are staying ahead of the market because you understand, as millennials, as people that are younger than us, they've embraced technology, love technology, so they're not fearful of this. And another example of this is like the Rocket Mortgage.
Yeah.
Like the Rocket Mortgage, you're getting hundreds of thousands of dollars of approval on mortgage loans on your cell phone. So in some ways, you're doing this. What do you say to the OG brands, like the legacy brands that are like,
Gotta change.
wait, the legacy brands, you know what I'm talking about? The ones that are like, you come in to a conference room and you sign the contract and you close this way, and these are the steps we take. You'd be like, you're the yellow pages?
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to say?
What
They're the
is.
yellow pages?
It's like going into the old Sears. Like, nobody does it anymore.
Sears catalog.
Yeah.
You crushed it. Is Charlottesville, Virginia a better place in 2018 than what you remember in childhood? Tell us yes or no,
It's
why?
different.
Yeah? Put it in
It's just
perspective.
different. Yeah. I mean, I remember when like all the development down Garth Road wasn't there, and all the houses, and it was horse fields. And so it's a big difference. But I like it. I mean, it's different. I like the changes. I like the growth. I'm not afraid of growth.
I'm not afraid
I think
of growth
it's
either.
inevitable.
Strategic growth.
Strategic.
We don't want urban sprawl. We want strategic growth. What is the one thing you don't like about it? Last question.
The traffic when the students are in town.
Yeah, traffic.
Isn't that funny that we complain about that when it's
right.
just like
when
that little bit?
I was just in New York City this weekend, and I was like, Charlottesville, I love you
I
so
know.
much.
I know, it's so small, so there's really not that much.
You killed it.
Well, thank you for
killed
having me.
it. Tell the audience how we can find you. Charles Schoolcraft, thank you for joining us. Roger Crawdaddy Crawford, a lot of agents on the broadcast right now. How can we find you? How can we learn more about your brand?
So Facebook.
That's your top platform, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Top platform. ValorieEaster.com is my website. I have v.easter at exprealty.com email. So reach out. Happy to answer any questions and help out.
She's very accessible and approachable, and I think she's happy to connect and educate anyone. She's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will be back, let's see, tomorrow with Sean Simmons, who's the CEO of Greenberries. I mean, we got a guy who's crushing it, and at the top of his field, going to sit here tomorrow to talk about how Greenberries went from a husband and wife combo in a beat-up Honda Civic in the McIntyre Office Park, driving the coffee in their Honda Civic to restaurants in town, to having 32 locations, doing millions and millions of dollars, and having a serious contract with Costco for wholesaling coffee. Sean Simmons tomorrow. Thank Judah Wickhauer behind the board for killing it today. I'm Jerry Miller, the I Love CVille show, thanks to Greenberry's Coffee. Charlottesville, as always, please be good to each other. Have a good day, guys. We love you.
Thanks.
You killed it. You killed it. You killed it. Oh, we got